Hi and welcome everyone to the Inner Scorecard. This is your host Nikhil Kapahi. Now, if you're like me and you constantly struggle with finding impact and meaning in your work, this conversation is for you. Today we have Dr. Karuna Shankar Pandey. Dr. Karuna is a vice president at Amazon. He runs an organization of 10,000 plus people, and that's the minutest of his personality details. He's been openly battling cancer for the last 5 years, and he's famously known for saying that cancer is his teacher or cancer is his guru. We dig deeper on how he fights these two battles of being an Amazon vice president and at the same time having cancer, going through 150 plus chemos. He was in the hospital 24 hours before this interview. He's an absolute legend to me. Dr. Karuna received Indian President's National Award for helping the most number of disabled people into a corporate like Amazon. It's amazing how much impact he's had through his career. Recently, he stepped away from his role at Amazon to focus on his personal mission, his pledge of helping 1 million plus people. Now, this guy is a complete beast. So don't be fooled by his simplicity, by his so chill aura. You would understand through this interview on how you can have a huge impact and a successful career at the same time. I've been just so absolutely blessed to be surrounded by such people, and that's why you would never find these guests anywhere on any other platform. These are handpicked by me from my network, and I'm so grateful that they agree to share these stories with you. Dr. Karuna's life reminds me of one quote from Charlie Munger. The best way to get what you want in life is to be truly deserving of it. I wanted to just talk about the breadth of things that you look at. So you're a VP at Amazon. So you're probably managing 10,000 plus organization, 1,800 plus delivery centers. Then you're an executive coach. You are a published author. You are a bone marrow cancer survivor. You still think about giving back to society. I want to ask you, I feel that you've done two things very well. So the way we call this channel is called Inner Scorecard. So that's your inner metrics, which is, I would say for you, would be your family persona, your spirituality, your ability to have genuine social impact. And then also the outer scorecard, which is like climbing up ladders, the social status, the money. I think you've done at both very, very well balanced way. Tell me one particular trait that underscores all of these characteristics.
Yeah. So, Nikhil, for me, if you are genuine in what you're doing and your effort is more in line with what you are thinking. So, what you are thinking and what you are doing, if it is aligned, that is what brings the best out of people. It's very difficult to mock up and show up differently at different occasions. So in my life, there are no photo ops. In my life, it's all about this is how I am, this is what I do, and this is how I do. So I'm no different with my team at work. I connect with the team at all levels. There is never a day that I'm having lunch alone in office, and it's a conversation which brings the team together. Similarly, when doing social work or connecting in the community, for me, it's immaterial whether it's a security guard or a community around our operations. My approach is still to see how can I be of any help, and any conversation, even if it is 30 seconds in a lift, should leave the other individual in a sense that they are elevated in terms of the experience they had. If nothing, a small smile itself, a genuine smile, leaves them in a shape which gives them a recognition that at least I have recognized the other individual and their efforts. Right. So at Amazon, as you rightly said, being a VP is a large portfolio, but then it's also the team which you build, the confidence that you have in your team, the empowerment that you do to the team. And I was really that way lucky, and perhaps the company would have seen that I associate myself with social work. So outside of AMZL network leading for India, I'm also the executive sponsor for entire India operations on CSR as well as on DEI. Now that's something that comes naturally to me. I love doing it, and I've done now for almost like 5-6 years. And when you do something for 5-6 years, you can make meaningful impact.
Right.
And that is what my life has been. So it's a full circle where you are genuine, You are true to yourself, doing what you actually believe in. I think that is what has kept me engaged at work, off work, in home, in the community, and with whomever I interact.
So, do you believe that good guys finish last? Like that saying wherein if you're of the pele aap nature, right? Like if you're like, oh, you first, and you're just being very, very courteous, very nice to everybody, very cordial, like trying to get everybody together. You're the one who finishes last. I don't agree with that. I think that is in the short term, yes, that's true. That does happen, right? You don't finish or you don't end up having the expectations. But I think over time, as you said, or compounded over years, good guys finish first, actually. So I'm just wondering what's your take on that?
No, absolutely. And particularly at Amazon, right? You are empathetic to people, you connect with people, you connect before you correct. But there is seldom a meeting where you're not going at depths, tearing every idea into pieces. But again, the effort is to help teams uh, get the best out of whatever effort is being made. So it's not about being good person last, but it's also about being good every time that you interact. I mean, we don't start any Amazon meeting without success story or a safety tip or a empathy tip. And that's just a reminder that we are at task when we are in meeting, but then we value the contribution of each person. And that's why we also have an inclusion tip that we are making sure that teams are learning from whatever good or bad has happened, but teams are also conscious of the things which they have not been able to achieve and move fast. I mean, sometimes teams get stuck into they fail, but they don't acknowledge the failure. So, as a leader, showing that mirror and saying fail fast is a good way in Amazon to finish. And I really don't know whether good people finish fast, but good people certainly last long. They
Mhm.
are more happier. They are more at peace.
Right.
For example, I mean, a lot get talks on work-life balance. For me, I've changed organizations, but I've never had this call out that there is no work-life balance, because work-life balance is a natural part of me, because that is how I'm at work, that is how I'm at home.
Right.
And I don't imagine that work life balance means every day there'll be 12 hours for me and 12 hours for the work.
Mm.
There will be occasions when you're working 20 hours for work. There'll be occasions when you have taken time off and doing everything which you intend doing outside of work. So, yeah.
Can you talk more about the burnout phase? So, like, this is what you said, right? Like, I also feel that if you want to connect with everybody, that takes way more energy than not connecting, right? Than being very straight to the point, only having meetings, but nothing outside of meetings. That genuinely takes extra effort. Talk to me about, doesn't that lead to burnout? Like, and not just your VP role at Amazon, all the things that you've been doing. Talk to me how that from physical and also from mental, like what does the energy feel like when you're doing so many things? Is that what people call burnout, or is it like the exact opposite of burnout? It fuels you.
Yeah, I tend to believe it fuels, because when you give energy, you get energy as well. Right. So when on a picking up a coffee, it takes 5 seconds of conversation with whoever it is, irrespective of hierarchy, right? You even in that 5, 10, 15 seconds when you're pouring the coffee, you can connect in a genuine, proper way and actually get to know something about people, which always help. Get to know something about which you don't know, but it depends on how you are orienting the discussion.
Mhm.
I mean, even a little starter like, hey, today also the sun has risen from east, can bring different point of view from others. Even if you say, how are you? And you say, how are you today? It brings two different kind of responses. So it's those subtle things. And I believe that it's not about only giving energy, it's about taking energy for yourself as well. So for me, it has been more liberating, more happiness at work, which is not necessarily mean that when you are in the trenches and doing the work, you need to behave differently. It is just that while walking into the trenches, while being in the trenches and doing other things, you are still genuine and connect with everybody.
Talk to me about, like, you have probably like 5, 10,000 people in the organization. Like, you cannot possibly connect with everybody, and I'm wondering, like, is that also like people see through agendas. Like when you're actually grabbing a coffee, or when you want to genuinely have lunch with somebody, it's not some agenda behind that. Like it's not for you to get like brownie points for, okay, I know one more person from my organization, that's important. So talk to me about that. Like how are those interactions? Like are they so high level, or are they like genuinely just knowing that person without titles, or without, as you said, a security guard versus an operations manager? There's no difference. They're all, humans. So does that what also helps you connect, and people see that very easily, that okay, like you genuinely just want to connect?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll tell you. I mean, like in Amazon, I mean, we try to set still mechanisms when things are where you have 5,000 people, you can't potentially connect with everybody. A is whenever you are meeting with the purpose of a discussion, but you are connecting in a way that it stays for long in you and the other person. That's one. But you can't cover the full spectrum with that. So, and this is for all peaks that I do. There is 1 hour with 15-minute slots,
And
which
peak is
anybody can book.
the Diwali season, right? In India. Yes.
Yeah, for us it is Diwali peak, but I extend it in. We have 5 peaks, so I extend it for all, which is the Republic Day, the summer sale, the Freedom Sale,
Mm-hmm.
Prime Day, as well as Diwali peak. So it's a 1 hour of slot because people really get stressed, and a
Mm-hmm.
15-minute of conversational time. So it's a open. Anybody can book. It gets filled fast, but then at least people have opportunity to many times good work which they are doing.
Right.
It's not always that they need support. They feel so happy that they have been able to tell to a VP that this is what I have done today, this is what I have achieved today. So, and it means a lot during the peak because we always make it out like that at Amazon that peak is the thing. So, that's the time if you are more open and can carve out 1 hour in your calendar. I always do that. And I find it very a mechanism worth the time that I spend there. And I mean, there are people who connect more often than the others, but it does not matter to me. For what matters to me that I am available for people. So similarly, when we go on sites, there is never a site visit without a detailed Gemba where we connect with everybody up to the associate. There is never a time that we come out without a all team meeting. So
Mm-hmm.
there are engagement opportunities through which you are able to at least touch base with your team as much as you can.
That's amazing. Is there one particular achievement during the last few years that you feel certainly proud of?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'd like to call out when I had the opportunity to receive the President's Award. That was, I would say, a big thing for me and certainly a big thing for the organization as well. So, this was on inclusion of people with disabilities. It is a very long term project which we had done. And our approach was not really representation. Got recognized at national level was for the higher number of people that we were able to employ. But we were always thinking how to make sure that people, because this is a cohort, Nikhil, which is really has a very tough and challenging personal life. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
their acceptance in the society is quite low, and they are almost considered as people who can't live on their own,
Mm-hmm.
and they live at mercy of others who help them. And this was something as part of the DEI agenda. I had driven it in the organization where looked at how can we bring these people in. For us, safety is paramount. So made sure that how they are inducted differently, how they are differently means basis their need, how they are enabled. We did brought experts to see what is the job role mapping. I mean, which kind of disability can do. Then looking at infrastructure upgrades. So it was a long project, and eventually I feel so glad that we have reached a scale which no other corporate in India is able to achieve. And now we have brought everything together. So we bring more and more in the mainstream these people so that we are not putting separate team to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
But when it was start, I mean, like every people with disability who was at site had a buddy
Mm-hmm.
for the shift that they are. So if they need any help, they are able to interact. We brought, because it was not just getting people to work, it was about really inclusive growth for them. And so, how do they interact? I mean, if you hire a hearing and deaf person, I mean, they'll get lost because they are just doing their work, they are not able to talk to anyone. So, we brought, just for example, I put in a signable as a tool, which is through which it's a three-way communication. They can talk. It's very swift. It's very easy. The managers can communicate to them. They can ask questions. They are part of all the reward and recognition that gets done at
Hmm.
site. Really, I mean, that is something that I feel proud that we have been able to, starting from first, we had one delivery station, which was a silent station. That was 100% PWDs were running. From there, getting into a scale, which is now the largest employer of PWD in India, is a journey that I really led from the front, but also, of course, everybody contributed.
Right.
And I had the pleasure of going to the Vigyan Bhavan and receiving the award.
That's amazing. And when I heard that first, or when I read that first, I was truly amazed. I think that to me is like the epitome of like having impact and, like having a high responsibility role at Amazon and other big companies, but also having like a genuine social impact through that. But talk to me more about the program. So like it is definitely at all stages, from hiring to like ensuring where they get placed and how can they work alongside day-to-day work changes a lot. So you were saying that I think the main part that Amazon was able to figure out was, of course, hiring is one big place because Amazon is big and we can hire a lot, but I'm also wondering, it was just figuring out where to place people, and certain disabilities can't work in certain areas, figure that out, like how to do that, and then place them and make sure they're they retain there and they're happy there.
Yeah. And but the other thing which we have done some deep work in this area, Nikhil. So first time in entire world, Amazon doesn't have anywhere. We brought in a global resource center. So we contributed in Gurgaon. Whenever you're there, you can go and see. It's a global resource center where we are saying we employ, but we are also taking responsibility of enabling where people with disabilities are trained and other corporates can also join. Because when we have to make a social impact which is larger than the opportunity which is at Amazon, we have to think at scale. So there is an app called Rozgar Sarthi. So when they get trained, they actually get into Rozgar Sarthi, where now seeing the kind of scale that we have been able to achieve, and I'm with full humility, I want to say many other corporates we have been able to impact that these people can be employed. So through Rozgar Sarthi, which becomes a bridge for the organizations, there are 1,000 plus corporates now who are listed on Rozgar Sarthi, and there are at least 30,000 active PWDs through whom they interview and easily take. So the hiring has gone, and many of them have gone through our a success which we have achieved, to understand that it's not just hiring, it's
Right.
also about sensitizing the team, making people who are coming included and valued. So how were able to do all that, more and more corporates are taking that path, and we really feel proud that we have been able to put a global resource center, joining with other couple of NGOs, where we have contributed as well to make sure that people with disabilities are first enabled through training, and then they get into Rozgar Sarthi and are able to take employment in 1,000 corporates now.
That is so amazing. I would love to read more about that. Talk to me about your own personal journey at Amazon. Like, I think becoming a VP from a director is one of the hardest challenges that, a human can face. I would say that is like the Iron Man of, corporate and tech, is going through from the director to VP role. And you have been, very actively doing, social responsibility. Was that all connected? Like, did that help you also like scale up within Amazon so that leaders understood that, yes, you're somebody who can, bring profit into the business, but also like have a big recognition and big impact? Talk to me more, because I think one of the things that I want the viewers and myself to learn from this is like, these are not two orthogonal paths, or two separate paths that I make millions in life, I become whatever level I want to have, or a startup founder, and then have impact when you're when you're 55, when you're 60, when you're in India we say the fourth or the third phase of life is when you start giving back. Talk to me about that. I think you've done it differently. You've seen them as a joint path.
Yeah, Nikhil. So firstly, it helps, like you said, in any move from L8 to L10, because you're doing beyond work. And again, I'm really humbled by the effort that we have been able to make in the space of community engagement. Now, community engagement is a reality. It's a license to operate actually for operations now. I mean, with the government, with the community. It's no more a nice to do thing. And I think that's how Amazon had its one of the two LPs which came in 2021, where success and scale brings broad responsibility. And if I have to just carve out two examples here, and there are quite a few, where our approach was always to do things which are needed in the community that we do. So we don't bring programs because they are worldwide. We do it, of course, because we have to have a national impact as well. But what is relevant for the community, and how can we build a program which is helping the community and sustains lifelong? So I'll give one example where today menstrual hygiene is something which is still a taboo in India. And you'll be surprised, our own surveys have shown that one third of the women folks do not know about menstrual hygiene. And the others who know also do not have access to clean menstrual hygiene products. 75% of the girls school going, they experience their first period, they are unaware of what periods is, and they are certainly not prepared to deal with it. There are 25% of girls who do not go to school during their periods. So that's the situation. So we then found out communities, but we wanted to do something which is so deep and self-sustaining. So we are currently doing that in 130 villages, where we have provided pad making machines. These are biodegradable, top quality pads which can be compared with any other commercially available pads and come at 50% of the cost. And these are operated by women from the community. So when they operate and make the pads, they are earning a livelihoods. So we have 60 entrepreneurs whom we have been able to make, who actually manufacture commercially available pads. Of course, we are only giving it through our program. Then the second challenge was in terms of women folks don't want to talk about menstrual hygiene even at home or anyone. So we have a program where we have community ambassadors. These are also women from the community. They take these pads, go educate the women why it's important to use clean, hygienic thing. And they are also earning a margin while selling at half the cost. So it's an ecosystem where there are pad manufacturing, which is done by women from the community. They are able to earn livelihood. There are community ambassadors who earn livelihood. And there are women folk who now have at their doorstep somebody who's able to explain them how to actually use and why it's important to use, and give them at really affordable prices. This is not the end of it, because we everything we do in Amazon, we want to make sure that it is sustainable. Then how do they actually dispose those pads? So that is where we partnered with a NGO called Pad Care. Now Pad Care has lal gadis which they take in these villages. There, apart from collecting all the garbage, they have a separate box in which women folks are conveniently able to put the pads. They take them to another center where they process it, recycle it, and 85% of it is recycled. And that's why we made the biodegradable. So it's a full circle of things which we wanted to do. I'll just take a moment and give another example where it's correlates so much with success and scale brings responsibility or community work. So drivers today have no place actually to rest once they are in their route, right? So if it's an 8-hour route, and in India, 80% are actually bikers. So it's not vans. So during various weather conditions, they find it very difficult where they can't even go somewhere for a 15-minute break. So we have put ashray centers. In the ashray centers, all delivery associates, not only of Amazon, or Zomato, Swiggy, Flipkart, anybody can come and rest. These are nice small places with air condition, water is there, coffee is there, newspaper is there. They can charge their mobiles. So they are there for about 15-20 minutes. Of course, we don't police that, but that's how their route densities are. But there is so much of acceptance of it from the government and everybody. But we have done it on our own will. Nobody asked us to do it for all the delivery associates who are there. So when we think at scale some of these things, it is making Amazon stronger and stronger. You do your core business, but you also contribute in areas which matter to the community, which matter to the ecosystem. and bring back to Amazon in many fold, I would say, the goodness which it deserves. Right?
So talk to me more about this role. Like, is it something that you were actively seeking when you entered Amazon, that you want to show up in more, CSR or DEI related initiatives? How do you spot these roles? And I can imagine at such high level, there's probably one role available like that. I'm wondering, like, were you proposing ideas? Like, how can people find these opportunities which are there? I think the companies, especially in big tech, they do a good job of like volunteering, but I'm wondering, like, how to connect it to your main role. Is that something you had to navigate, or had you done that before Amazon too?
Very, very interesting point. So I had not done before Amazon, but at Amazon when I started almost 8 years back, so there was a platform Good Era which had just started, and Good Era used to give opportunities for various volunteering activities outside. And since that is an area I loved or wanted to always contribute, pretty much all the weekends I was doing. And then there are some karma points which get given. That was not my goal, but on the karma table I was always on the top for almost like 5 6 months, so automatically it got noticed. And that's how it came to me rather than me asking for it, because of the efforts which I was doing. And genuinely for me it was okay, I have time on weekend,
Yeah.
why can't I take out couple of hours? So that is how the whole thing actually came.
When was the first time you started volunteering? Like, is that something that goes to your upbringing, or that's something that you did later on in life?
Yeah, that came more from actually my wife. She's an active person who gives back in the society. So I'm really at step one when I compare myself with her.
Mm-hmm.
But so she was also in a way joining me in these uh, uh, activities when I was going for volunteering. But I mean, uh, she was the one who I would
Yeah.
say more encouraged me, and I was seeing her doing, and here is an opportunity through a platform which was coming. So I also wanted to really take a leaf out of her
But
book.
are you like somebody? So I'm that person that I recently realized that if the claw machine game that you have, like, kids play where you pick up a toy. Me and my wife, we went to
Yeah, yeah.
Japan, and I spent like 1 hour trying to figure out toy, because I realized that I'm a person who loves games. And I love games I'm good at. Like, I love games, where I have an edge and I want to just keep competing. Is that also part of your inherent nature? Like, you like to, it's not so much about the points in itself, they mean nothing. Like, there nobody really cares that how many points Karuna has. But I'm wondering, like, is that something you enjoy as well, like gamification of things?
Yes, honestly, I do. I mean, I do like to see that to whatever extent we are these things, the gamifications actually give you that kind of, I would say, a sense of achievement in
Right.
your own self. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody just doesn't give in blind or in a space.
Yes.
One would always like to see some kind of a scorecard where we are going, what we are doing. So yes, certainly.
And then, like, career, does that at some points feel like a game as well? Like, I'm wondering, like, is that also in like that? I think that is one view that helps you disconnect, not be too personal. For example, you didn't get that promotion, you didn't get that pay raise, you don't want to be so personally doubting yourself that what am I doing wrong, or have such strong negative emotions. Whereas if you just think of it like really a video game or a game, that okay, you put in this much effort, you got this. There is external things that you don't control, right? And but at the end of the day, you feel just having fun. Is that also like how you see, like, because when you I imagine your work at Amazon for others could be extremely stressful, but if you imagine this to be almost like a game that you're doing your best, but the results are not really in your hands, that kind of helps you just keep doing them, because it is not you complete, it's not completely you. So do you see it that way too?
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. I mean, we are laser focused on our OPs and goals and would do everything to ensure that we are hitting it out of the park. Sometimes we are not able to, and we learn from them. But that's something which is always a thing that you'd like it under the belt. I mean, you don't want to be someone who's doing a lot of other things, but unable to really move the needle in the core work which is there.
Yeah.
And I think at every level, individuals always like to ensure that whatever their goals are, their work is tightly in line with them and they are able to deliver results. So yes, certainly. I mean, that's something which keeps you going at work. I mean, what I really hate to do is try to project an image which is not real, or try to put only the favorable results. So I always like to see a balanced overall card which covers everything. And that is how, I mean, life is always WIP, right? You're
Right.
learning, you're moving on, you're delivering. And but if you're not true to yourself and want to project an image which is, oh, everything is hunky dory, then you try to underplay the things which you have missed and overplay the things which you have done. I, it's not something which is rare in Amazon, by the way. I mean, a lot of people do that as well. That's one area which I don't like, or it's not me, and I just like to see where we are holistically.
Do you think the way you're living your life, or from professional plus the personal things that you're doing, the non-profit work you're doing on the side, do you think it's an outlier life? Do you feel that way?
In some sense, I mean, these are fingerprints which are a bit not common.
Yeah.
But I believe more and more people are wanting to give it in the society, wanting to excel at work as always.
Right.
But so very completely the way I've been able to do is something I guess is a gift from Almighty Lord, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that I'm able to do that the way that the results which are coming and the impact that we are able to make.
I think that, I mean, after I heard your story, I was like, this is one of the most exceptional stories that I have ever come across. Then I spoke to you, a month or so ago, and I was truly blown away by your humility of, and even for the record, right? Like, I think you were hospitalized a few hours ago, and your just enthusiasm to show up on this conversation, which is not important, right? Like, I'm just somebody just reaching out to you for a conversation. So I genuinely respect the way you've been showing up. And I think, to my earlier point on what is the one characteristic, I think apart from the alignment that you said, that your alignment with who you truly are and who you show up at work, it's all very much in balance and aligned. There's not a facade you're putting it up. I think the other things are just the effort you're consistently putting in. So you've been, it is an outlier. I would say that so far life has been outlier, but also I think it's the consistent effort and the resilience to, keep looking at the positive and gamify things, but keep on doing it. Whatever lens or perspective you want to put on the adversarial situation, you're understanding that what lens should I use to keep moving forward. That's just it is really brilliant. Talk to me about some of the learnings that you've had recently. Like, is there any like learnings, or in Amazon we say lessons, that you feel that maybe a big opportunity that you walked away from, or something that wasn't as glittery as receiving a president's award. So talk to me about that. Like, how do you manage in those situations?
Yeah. So look, Nikhil, I mean, there are always areas where you would love to do more and have not been able to. But what gives me the satisfaction is like the key markers which are there. How we are able to still move on the key markers of speed and quality. I mean, those are the key markers very clearly Doug Harrington has laid out for us. So those key markers we are able to move. But when we go at more from lessons learned perspective, there are nuances while we are able to achieve them, but there are nuances where we tend to think that we have taken more time in alignment. In fact, Jeff Bezos has always said that, and particularly for the emerging countries and emerging businesses, that you need to shoot, and then aim. And in the interest of action-oriented approach that he wanted, and for example, for India team, he said, you all need to be like a cowboy. And from that perspective, one of the things that really I'm tending to believe that we could potentially move faster in some of those experimentations and concluding them, failing fast, moving at speed and scale is something that I believe is an area where we'd like to do more.
Yeah, that's also, I think, very, to me it seems also like, we're having similar upbringing. You had a little bit of a head start than me, but I think it's the risk averseness that we have, right, towards things, that
Yeah.
just do what you're doing and do it well. I think it's also part of, our education system is like, don't look around, just don't try to fail. So failure is looked down upon, still it's a pride.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's
yeah,
changing. I
yeah.
think it is changing, certainly, but it is definitely got a long way to go, where I don't think we still celebrate entrepreneurs and, failures as much as we just have those cherry picking, or, the best ones. Have you, on that question, have you ever interacted with Jeff Bezos or one of the senior leaderships at Amazon? How has that interaction been? Do you feel that, those were certainly like motivating characters, or you would feel that, okay, you didn't have enough interaction? Like, what was your time at Amazon been with the senior leadership at Amazon?
Yeah, so not much of interaction, Nikhil, but some of the things stay with you for so long that you always have that lens while thinking. And just now, like I was telling for Jeff Bezos telling India team that be like cowboys, don't be risk averse, don't keep on analyzing, but move. And in that spirit, I mean, a couple of quick examples for you how we have been able to innovate in India at scale and with speed. So one of the big problems in India was that the address quality is poor. So it's not very clear the various addresses, and it was very difficult for us to break that barrier in terms of quality of performance. So what that is how we brought in Amazon First initiative of I Have Space. Now I Have Space are mom and pop shops which are 28,000 in India, covers 450 cities, and they are in 2 to 4 kilometers. Now they know everybody, so when they get the package they don't need the full address. Many of them by name itself will understand where they have to go and deliver. Now that is something which was not there in India. It was not there across in Amazon worldwide. So we innovated it for India and for Amazon. Now it's across, slowly growing for the last 1.5 years, but we ran for almost like 7, 8 years. I Have Space as a program now. So this is what perhaps the messages which we get from Bezos, even in small interaction or in small discussion or OP conversations, helps us to move where we are solving for our problem rather than solving it through tech. Because if we have to wait for tech to solve it, it will take a very longer time for you to get the address quality which you are looking at. Eventually, now we have got it, and we are able
Right.
to leverage other channels also to deliver in those addresses. But if we were to wait for that, there is a learning period that would have gone on the address side. Similarly, I mean, there are so many small sellers in India. I mean, to get them to sell to Amazon, it's so difficult because they would not, they are so small that they would not like to inbound the inventory into Amazon system.
Right.
They want to sell from their shops. And that this is again the India innovation for which now the worldwide it's getting replicated, which is Easy Ship. Easy Ship is where our delivery associates,
Yes.
instead of delivery, are going also doing pickup.
Yeah.
So they do pickup from 500,000 sellers in India
Wow.
every day, and they bring it to the station and we inject into the Amazon system. So now you see these small sellers are able to get the platform of Amazon, but don't have to really bring their inventory into Amazon. So some of these innovations, I think, closely linked with the leadership direction which is there. Because unless the leadership direction and leadership clarity is there in terms of be like a cowboy, this is emerging market. Now those things are something which makes you experiment some of these things. There are some failures, but some of these successes have now gone across the world.
No, that's really amazing. I think a couple of points on that. I think I was working in supply chain in EU, and I think I understood how Amazon worked, but once I tried to help my uncle sell, health supplements in Amazon.com, and I think I learned way more trying to help him sell with all those cases with sellers, and like I felt that, and I had moved out of the org by that time. I felt that I had mastered the whole supply chain from an FBA point of view. And I could now help anybody within Amazon because I had sold it outside. And I understood how each and every leg is connected to each other. Whereas within Amazon, I would only focus on, for example, the inbound side. I would not care so much about the outbound side, but outside, I connected all of it. And to your other point about addresses, I think that's something people outside can't appreciate. Living in US in Seattle, you say an address and I can almost zoom into Google Maps and be like a 1 mile radius. I can tell you where that street is because everything is like, like a graph, intersections and avenues, like everything's well mapped. And in Delhi, the funny story is like I grew up on the street and on the streets in Delhi, and my address, I always knew it through landmarks. I'd be like, from this school, take a left turn, and from this checkpost, take a right turn. And when Google Maps came in, it would say my street name is my street address is Dharam Marg. And nobody has ever, in my whole life of 30 years, has ever called that street Dharam Marg. It's only Google Maps. So that is technically the right address, but if you say that address, nobody would understand. So I think it's one of the hardest challenges to solve is like, how do you figure out, addresses in India? I wanted to ask you, I think this think about from a 20, 30-year-old, like late 20s, early 30s, somebody in their career who's thinking about impact, who wants to have, who's well paid, right? Who's well paid, is on the social ladder, like everybody respects him, they understand what they're doing, but they definitely feel like kind of empty inside. They feel that they could do so much more. I'm wondering, like, what do you have to say to them? Like, is that something that you need to start early? Is that because I certainly think that you can't learn the skill of giving at the age of 50 or 60. It's like, it's much harder. It's like learning a language when you're much older. It's just definitely harder. I'm wondering, like, I think you said you had your wife who kind of pushed you into this area. And now I see like more and more career of yours is becoming that. It's just, helping out people. And I'm wondering, like, for somebody in their, late 30s who are well settled, on paper by the outer scorecard, society respects them, they're well paid, they might even have a house, but they still feel like there's lack of fulfillment, there's lack of meaning in what they do. Tell me what would you say to those guys?
Yeah. So certainly, I mean, the earlier you start, the better it is. And the start uh, need not have to be a very heavy lift. The start can be small things which you can do for the people in and around you. Now, it doesn't take much to keep some feed for the birds, some water for the birds, taking out some way of helping people who are in need of some money, or mentoring students. It's all available. I mean, there are platforms which allow you that. But how do you actually make sure that you're able to take out time? I mean, time is the biggest thing. I think for everybody who has a great scorecard, will always have this sense of lack of fulfillment unless they do. I mean, a very small thing also in this area, regular, will really compound many times in their own self the outer scorecard which they have. And in the society, in the family, it is something which is some counted. I think it's a multiplier. It's as simple as that. And does it require a lot of effort? In my opinion, no. Because it's all at least from India context, it is something which is available around you. You don't have to really go far. I mean, there is always somebody who's in need around the Christmas time, around winter. Can you distribute some blankets on your
Right.
own? Of course you can. During summer, can you distribute some water? Of course you can do. So some of these, and they are not heavy effort things. Keeping some grains for the bird, keeping some water for the birds, but caring for people who are working for you, or at when we go to our operations. I mean, there are executives and managers who are, of course, well to do, and they know what they take home and they are happy. But as you are there around, you'll realize there are a lot of people who are still, I would say, underprivileged in more than one way. They are not able to handle their children, right? In terms of, they all want their children to do well. Can you do a little bit of counseling, little bit of help? If you're open for that, and the conversation can be very small. I mean, uh, uh, people are keen to learn, keen to rather see that their children do much better than what they have achieved, right?
Right.
If you help in that, and these are things which you can start early, I guess, and not wait for big things like where you're sponsoring a big event, and
Right.
those kind of things can wait, right? And just one thing on volunteering, Nikhil, right? Many opportunities which come, I mean, it makes you humble, you get attached to people, but it doesn't satisfy you. For example, I mean, if you go in a kitchen and contribute in meal making, that's really not your skill.
Right.
I mean, you are doing it because that's the one which was available. But at the end of the day, there's someone else who can do better or equal than what you're doing. I mean, you are a software engineer. Can you make an app for NGO?
Right.
Can you help them run their supply chain a bit better so that with the same amount which they spend, they are able to make impact 1.2x, 1.3x, 1.4x? That is something which is more fulfilling, which is something that I'm trying to actually drive it in India, and in very strong engagement with Amazon worldwide, where we reorient ourselves to skill based volunteering, because from
Mm-hmm.
all the inputs that we have taken from employees as well, they feel that that is something which will be more fulfilling. So I would always say mentoring, counseling, coaching, those are the things for those who are in 20s and 30s. If you can take out time for that, that is something which will
Right.
always be helpful. And you don't have to go far. I mean, it can be in your society. There is a security guard who has a son who is 8, 9, 10 class. You can always spend some time and help them in that.
Yeah, I think to your point, I think there are steps to it. Step one is just take out time to volunteer. Like, I think that
Yeah.
even the act of taking out time, the volition to take out time and go help somebody, that is step one. Like, that is what you need to work on. And you might not find immediate results. You might feel that, oh, I took
Yeah.
out time and look, I tried to help this person and they either are not thankful or they don't use any of the advice. So what's the point? But I think the first step is that volition that I want to go help somebody. And I think it definitely stems from the fact that a lot of the answers that people look within themselves are actually answered by looking outwards, right? Like there a lot of the question that who am I, or what am I doing, or what's the point of this, is actually to face it outward. Like, how can I help somebody? And that defines who you are. And the second part is that once you start doing that, you can start honing in. Okay, for example, as you said, like that was my first. My first was just volunteering. I went to the best nonprofits I could find. I spoke to the founders and I said, okay, I am this person. Can you help me find something that I can do to help you, to help your organization? That eventually led to me building a data science model for a nonprofit in India. And that is what I used to clear my Amazon interview as a data scientist. I said, look, I want to convert to data scientist. I was an operations manager, or having an analytics background. I said, look, I don't have any experience at Amazon. I was not given a role there to solve a data science problem, but I did it for a nonprofit. And that was actually a harder problem because in Amazon the data is clean and everything, but outside I had to really figure it out, like a 0 to 1 problem. So I feel that is the second step, is once you hone in, you can start delivering on skills. I think the step 3 is scalability. I think that's what you're heading towards now in your own personal life as well, is like, can I start something of my own that has massive impact, or do I piggyback on somebody else's idea? In my case, the academy that I work with, the Freedom Employability Academy, where we teach underprivileged kids on how to speak English and how to
Awesome.
become employable in India. I realized that idea I could not have, even if I was born 10 times, I would not have a better idea than that. And also the already existing organization. It is a very well-oiled organization. They are able to reach 200,000 kids a year, and it's free education. And they're not kids; they're like in their higher teens and 20s. And I'm like, how can I now? I know the founder. My sole purpose would be just to help him out because I can't have a better idea than this guy. So, that I think is a step 3, is like, how do you scale? But I think often people don't even start because they think, okay, if I help somebody security guard's son, then how is that going to scale? I can't help hundreds of people like that. But I think that act of starting may be the first best thing that you could do. I think one question I had, Karuna, from your experience as a VP and also as an executive coach, do you think there are certain traits that block people from growing? Like, is that something that people kind of self-inflict? and it prevents them from their real growth. And I think you have seen probably hundreds or, probably close to thousands of promotions. I'm wondering, like, what is the core characteristics of people who have succeeded and, at least in those, not life, but those steps from, going from level jump or, starting something around. What is the core characteristics that you have found? And even which applies even at a higher level, like an executive level, that would still apply?
So, I mean, outside of the hard skills, I'll start with what becomes a blocker for some of the people. And in my own experience of having coached hundreds of people, is that they have self-limiting beliefs. Now, that is where the self-limiting beliefs become the biggest blocker for growth, because they are not fearless in approaching things. They are not thinking things which they can do, but they are thinking more from lens of what they can't do. And this self limiting belief, if in the coaching you are able to provide that insight and bring to a point where at the end of the day people understand that it's a self limiting belief, it's really not a blocker, and they move beyond that, that is when the growth become engine moves, right? For those who succeed, I think that, to my mind, the single biggest important thing is ownership, because they work irrespective of whether anybody is watching, not watching. And I think that is where, what, in my opinion, is a big, I would say, differentiator for those who grow fast. You are always at liberty to do what things are told, but you have the full freedom actually to go all the distance. As an owner, think about everything. I mean, whether it is frugality, whether it is about the customer, whether it is about how getting better every day, is not something which people will demand. I mean, at the end of the day, as an organization, we are okay with average output. That's how our OPs and goals are set. But as a owner, you'll always take couple of things and go distance, which is, I would say, others don't have the motivation and drive to go. So on one side, it's the, I would say, ownership, self motivation to move, which is unsupervised and doesn't need a push. And on the other side, it is a self limiting belief, where one of the self limiting belief people have is, oh, it takes 3 years for a promotion to happen. Or self-limiting belief is that Amazon, if you fail once, you get tagged as a non-performer, right? Which is not true. It's the more experimentation that we value. We value people to stretch. We value
Right.
people to experiment, fail fast, learn from it, and move on. While I'm saying in the context of Amazon, it's true everywhere. The self-limiting beliefs are the one which come in way. Fear of failure is a big, big one.
And I think they're both very connected as well. Where you said, I think I love what you said, as doing the right things even when nobody's watching. That's something we also teach at,
Yeah.
the FE Academy I was talking about, like integrity. Everybody stops at a red light when there's the police guy, right? Like, but and this is so applicable for Delhi. You watch a Delhi traffic stop. Like if there's no police and people know there's no police, they don't stop at even red lights. So that, and that shows up in all the things that you do, is that
Yeah.
self belief that I am, I'll do the right thing. And ownership is just taking that step forward, is I know I'm doing the right thing, so I'll do it all the way. Why stop it? Like, why self limit and just, achieve X, what you said earlier, but not go all the way? So,
Right.
completely agree. So, Karuna, talk to me about this step about leaving Amazon and stepping away from a role like VP at Amazon, which is, people feel like they would want to hold on to as long as they can and possibly go up higher. I'm wondering, like, what self-realization happened that you are feeling comfortable to stepping away from this?
So there is only one reason, and that is around, I have a personal mission of impacting 1 million lives, and that's the journey I want to get on to. Whether I achieve in next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, or don't achieve is not material. Then 1 million is more as a directional thing for me to know and get up every day knowing that I haven't done enough and more has to be done. And I want to touch things which have not been worked on ever in India. So my workspace will still be India, but I'm looking at some impact which I can make in the community So that's the sole reason why, as you rightly said, I mean, I could have gone on and on in Amazon, and leaving Amazon, it's like taking more than half part of my life, because I really enjoy work there. I enjoy interacting with people. I enjoy solving problems, and giving it back to the team as well as growing them is something that is fun every day. But then there's a mission that I want to get on to.
So talk more about the mission. Tell me more. Like, what is something that you're looking into? Is that something concrete and defined, or is it something like an open canvas right now?
It's an open canvas, but there are few things, markers, which are there in my head. The markers are like, get into area which has not been explored, or there are no NGOs, or very few who are working in. Otherwise, I mean, there are things like food security, education, etc., which is, there are a lot of people who are doing work and good work. So I'd certainly like to support them as
Mm.
advisory. But there are areas which I believe are untapped as of now, and a social need. For example, I mean, the generational gap which is there. I mean, today, when we look at from the lens of village, there are elders, once they become 60 plus, they still have another 20, 30 years, and perhaps they can pass on some wisdom to others as well, the youngsters. But there is no platform, there is no way that we even actively engage with them. So their life
Mhm.
becomes more like taking care of grandchildren and those kind of things. And loosely saying, they become burden more than anything else. They are secluded in the village. And so that is one space which I've been constantly thinking as to, how do we bridge the generational gap? More than that, how do we use the wisdom of generation to interact with people, to meaningfully contribute? How they can be part of mentoring? How can they be part of
Right.
the schooling system which is there? Is something that I'm for sure thinking. The other area where, Nikhil, a lot of work in India has happened in primary education. A lot has happened in ninth, 10th, or graduation and theirs up to 12th. But in the 7th, 8th, ninth class, with the middle layer which is there, that is where the maximum dropouts are there. And that is where not much work has been done, particularly in the developing states. So those are the things. I mean, I want to touch things which are have not been explored. I hope that that's a space that has potential. I believe so.
Mhm.
In pockets, it will be very meaningful. I'll learn and then expand into other states, but continue to also contribute through other NGOs as advisory, as whatever I know in terms of supply chain, whatever I know in terms of how things can really meaningfully be a sustainable model. How can
Right.
NGOs do better than what they are doing today? Is another space that I want to work on.
That's beautiful. I think the more I travel around the world, I realize that getting old in India is, or maybe like some parts of Asia, is substantially different to how old age is seen outside. My in-laws are plus 70 plus and they're hiking mountains, and nobody dare call them old. It's not just a thing that it's offensive to call them old, but the thought, they themselves don't have this thought that they're old. And that is, what we talked about is the self-belief, wherein I went to Japan, and of course their systems are different. I completely agree, like economies are different, their cultures are different. But in Japan, you would see, you'd be surprised, most of the shops you would see, in Tokyo and Kyoto would be run by older generation, by 60 plus,
Yeah,
70 plus.
correct.
I went to a restaurant, and there's two 70 plus old ladies running the restaurant, and they're very nice to talk to. And I asked them, who's the chef, like who owns the shop, and she's like, oh, it's my mother. And she's 90 plus in the kitchen, cooking. And they had the shop for like 40 plus years in Kyoto. And I realized that, it's just the thought that, in India, I feel that with my grandparents and with my dad's and mother's generation, I feel that once they hit 60, they're forced to retire from work, which is, I think, a good thing, and most of them are pension, which is amazing. And then that's it. They feel like, okay, now their only sole responsibility is to, be part of a small part of the society, but take care of the grandkids. But mostly it's sedentary, stay at home, do some stuff. But they feel that, I think that is something I feel very connected to, that I would like to change in some time, is that just the thought of you're fully mobile, you're fully functional. And, there's way more things you could do. And I think what your idea also really appeals to me there. Yeah, that's just the thought I had. Whenever my uncles and parents say that I'm old, I'm like, I just don't register that thought. And I'm like, I would never believe that.
Yeah.
So I think, Karuna, one of the things that really stood out to me about you was how openly you were sharing your journey about cancer, how you went through it. And I completely agree that that's not something that people should be hiding. Especially, that is not something people should be alone to deal with. And I'm wondering, like, can you talk about when that happened? If it's okay to share more, like when that happened, what was going in your head? Like, what's the framework as you're approaching it now? You've been, there's been remissions. You've been battling it for so long. Has that framework changed? And I'm trying to understand that. And that comes from my personal story as well. Like in my house, four of my, the four of four people have cancer in my house. Like four of my next generation have cancer in Delhi, and it's just unreal that, and it's very daunting. I think none of them really want to talk about it, because it is just extreme pressure on them, either socially or just the concept of it has just worn them down. And especially the treatments have worn them down, and they just feel like they don't want to talk about that, but anything else is fine. I'm trying to understand from you, like, how is that perspective? How has that framework changed for you?
So, Nikhil, I mean, for me, for sure, I mean, there is no denying that there is an element of pain, there is an element of difficulty that one has to go through. But for me, apart from pain, resilience, but it was also about how can I still be normal? In my head, it was very important that even 150 plus chemos and three relapses, I was still always looking at keeping my life normal. So I was undergoing radiations. In the second half, I was going and working. I was undergoing chemo in the second half. First half, I was going and working. So that is something which I think in a way helped actually. And I have a framework which I'd just love to share because that is while it has worked for me in cancer, and I'm sure it is probably will help your viewers in terms of caregivers of cancer, the cancer patients themselves, but also somebody who's really navigating the various challenges of life and anything which is difficult. And the framework that uh, I've used, I call it, you need to have the spirit of punching it out. And if you let the disease overtake you, that is when the real problem starts. So, and punch it out. I'll just try to explain each aspect, and each aspect is important for a disease as difficult as cancer, but also equally important for when one is navigating a difficult challenge in life. It can be anything. And first thing is about positivity. I think much is being said about being positive, but when something as severe as cancer hits you, it just goes away. I mean, it remains in theory. But let me explain with examples. So, I mean, here I'm having the first interaction after all results are done with the doctor, and doctor says fourth stage multiple myeloma cancer. And when I come out, and my wife has been really the super pillar of strength for me. And I told her that, hey, Neelam, what is this? He's saying fourth stage. And she said, hey, fourth stage is for doctor and it's a medical term. We came to know today, so it is first stage. And I think that spirit that you call it, you can also call it foolish optimism, but that is required. Even if you know that that may not be true, but you have to be optimistic and you have to believe that there's something that you can overcome. So that's the P of the punch it out. The other is while you are positive, you're not somebody who is doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. So the U is understand. You need to still educate yourself. You need to understand what is that you're dealing with, and really you need to accommodate the changes that are required to overcome. So you have to help yourself, right? So the U is the understanding. I mean, at times just being foolish optimism doesn't help. I mean, you need to understand. The other is negativity, and this is very important, perhaps in cancer and in any challenge. Is you will meet a lot of people who will say, ha ha, I understand positivity, I understand, but. So these people who say but, right, they are the biggest confusing people for you. And for from negative people, the best is not to really get into any discussion on this subject,
Mm.
because they have a lot of idea about cancer, they have heard a lot, and for them it's only a terminal disease, and they will it's not going to help you even one day. I mean, 6 year plus, as I
Right.
said, in cancer, I'm still normal. I mean, yesterday I was in hospital, but I wanted to have this conversation and I'm here. So that is how I was showing up. Okay, when the treatment is going, and it helped, right? So, but the most important thing is be positive, but be away from people who are negative. The C in punch out is calmness. You still need that mindfulness. I mean, thankfully I've done Vipassana, so I understand the merit of equanimity. I understand the importance of being calm, and I know the means and techniques of how to stay calm. And everybody wants to keep calm, but you need to have that technique. And Vipassana
Right.
had really given me that. And mindfulness is something which I would say was an important aspect, where you're still thoughtful, you're mindful about what you're doing. H in punch it out is help. I mean, you don't realize that almost everybody is there to help you. It is so gratifying. I mean, you need to be open, you need to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you are seeking help, and in fact, always be open to take more and more help. Everybody is willing to help you and support you. I mean, it's not that I was able to give 100% on 100% of the days at work, right? There are days when
Right.
I am really down, and that is the help and ecosystem which, if you are open and you seek, you actually get that. So that is the punch. The other, in terms of it out, as I said, I is improvise. You need to still be clear that there are changes in life. There is three relapse, so three different type of treatment. You should not be thinking, oh my god, what is happening every day? Things are changing. Doctors are saying one day
Mm-hmm.
this, other day that.
Right.
Doctors are saying what is your body is undergoing. So improvise, be open to improvise thing. The other thing is be tolerant. I mean, there'll be pain. If you go and open up to everybody, oh my god, it's so painful, chemo, I'm not able to eat, I'm vomiting a lot, then you'll get sympathy, not help. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to be, some of the things you have to be tolerant. In terms of out, the O is obey. I mean, there are experts. Obey the doctors. Everything which they are saying, one needs to obey that, right? In their routine or whatever. The other U is utilize the time to visualize success. I mean, you'll be out of cancer. It's not like
Right.
you are getting treated every day. You'll have time. And trust me, I'm being genuine and honest in saying, in those periods when I was in terms of thinking about how to utilize what will I do once I come out, a lot of thoughts around the work which I have done in people with disabilities. Because you are in vacuum, you're undergoing chemo, you are still your if you keep your
Right.
mind engaged and you visualize a situation where it will be a springboard and you'll be out, you can actually think through a lot. I mean, what is meditation at the end of the day? You are thinking
Right.
for yourself. Some of these difficult disease also gives you opportunity to utilize the time to visualize what will you do once you're out of it. And I think the more time we spend on that, it only helps. And the last T is triumph. Triumph will only be there if you never give up. I
Right.
mean, it's easy to give up. A lot of people actually lose in the race because it's so easy for them to give up. So I think that's the model I've used, punch it out. And I believe that anybody navigating any challenge, if even some elements of this they pick up genuinely, it can help them many folds.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think even in my case, like, all these conversations, I think they would understand theoretically, like, what is supposed to be done, how are they supposed to feel. I think, would I be correct in assuming that in your case, it was always you were looking forward to so many things? So it was, yes, it happened, but it was not, no way close to defining your identity in that sense of defining your day to day mood, your month to month mood, in the sense that this has now become part of me. Whereas you were generally looking forward to the meetings, and that looking forward just helped you like understand that, okay, how do I best adjust to this right now so I can look forward to those things? I can do those things that are more important than this.
Absolutely. I think you have hit the nail on its head. That is what is most important, because as I said, I mean, the whole world understands the word cancer, and they'll be willing to accommodate anything which you say. I mean, obviously, it was not a surprise where the organization said, if you want to take a leave, if you want to be off work, everything is okay, Karuna. But you are the one who has to say, no, I want to come to work, I want to show up, I want to give my best.
Right.
So, yes, looking forward, contributing, being
Right.
as normal as one can be, but seeking help where you need is something which is most important.
No, as you rightly said, I think we were early talking about games. It's mostly like pressing an escape and quitting the game. That's the easiest step, right? Just sending an
Yeah,
email, I'm off, or just agreeing or believing yourself that, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm going to check out. That's always like just one thought away or one step away. But the other part is the laborious work of day to day putting in. So it's always the short resistance path is just to say no. But I think
yeah.
this preparation comes before the storm. You can't be preparing for the storm when you're in the middle of it. I think, is that also true? I'll talk more later about Vipassana, but is that true that you had Vipassana in your toolkit before you went through cancer?
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
So I think that makes a big difference is not just the toolkit, like toolkit in the sense, the mindset that you have, but also like looking forward to things. You can't be in the storm, and it's harder. I mean, it's possible, but it's harder to find reasons after you've been given handed a situation which you didn't want.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely helps to have that trajectory because, and I think something beautiful that you said earlier on in other conversations that I've heard you, you said cancer is a teacher. Cancer has been a teacher for you. Now, that is a very contradictory to what most people would say. Most people would say cancer is the ultimate decision or is the most biggest handicap of my life. But you've crafted it in a way that it's a teacher. Talk to me about that framework. Like, where did that happen? How did you realize that, this is something I could learn from?
Yeah, yeah. So, and as you rightly said, I mean, that's the last thing you'll think, that cancer as a teacher. If you tell to anyone, I mean, they'll be surprised that you're thinking that way. By the way, I'm just writing my book on the cancer, my guru. What are the lessons I have learned from cancer? And right from the day it hit me to every stage of it, there is plenty of learning for me. In fact, initially, when I would say after about couple of months, I started realizing, I mean, there's a lot of calmness that this is bringing in me, the lot of deep thinking, long term thinking. It's a bit surprising, but it also came along with cancer. So I said, oh yes, here is something that I'm picking up, and I'm able to orient myself a bit differently. So I'm putting that all in a book. I'm I think 30% done with the book.
This is a concept that I've recently come across from a very renowned guy called Nassim Taleb, which talks about anti fragility. And what he's saying is that robustness, everybody knows what is robustness. Robustness means when you're under pressure, you sustain, you're fine. Anti fragility, there's no other term until like he basically, most people, credit him to coining this term. Anti fragility means you grow when there's adversity. So when you're under pressure, you actually become better. It's not just sustaining through it. I think you framing a cancer in a way sounds definitely like, you're making your life so focused on that one thing that you're using whatever you can around you as a fuel to go forward in that direction. So that to me is like, really really inspiring. Like, and when you said you've been through 150 chemos, I had goosebumps all over my body because I am currently seeing one of my closest family members go through chemo, and every time, I see her come home, it just shatters my heart to see her, like, in that shape and form. And I say, this is not my aunt, for that day, because it's just completely unrecognizable. So I really kudos to you, and I think it gives us a lot of perspective on, how you're approaching these things. I wanted to ask about, like, Amazon, and during this time when you were going through Amazon, did like titles, did that look almost like ridiculous to you? Like, all the when you so basically, putting in that sense, right? Like, earlier on in life, you care about, for example, big paychecks, big titles, big houses. But once you, and I've seen a lot of us go through these life changing events, which could either be yourself or somebody very close to you. They just give you like a certain perspective shift, that in work, that you were only caring about certain outer things. You actually just like to be around people, and you just enjoy that for, the next few weeks, because some adverse thing happened in your life. I'm wondering, like, what was there a change in your perspective to those titles and to just the outer scorecard of things once cancer hit?
Yeah, yeah. So Nikhil, certainly, I mean, there are times when you think that, I mean, all that you are trying to earn, whether it's a position, like you said, whether it's money, whether it is status, one day will come to naught. So I think it was more a realization for me, not in the immediate term. The immediate term, the thought was uh, uh, continue doing what you are doing. But in terms of long term, that there has to be an end to it, and I need to pivot to something different, bigger, which, if it doesn't create a legacy, but at least it creates a sense of satisfaction in people in and around you. And I think that's where the thought of, in fact, resigning from Amazon and moving on was also there. But as you'll realize, I mean, it's not like immediate. I gave it a good 6.5 years, and I'm still doing fine. But I wanted to repivot. One of the things, and I think it comes out from that thought that the outer scorecard is not what is material. What is material
Right.
is the inner scorecard, in your words. What is material is the impact or the legacy which you are creating. The legacy doesn't mean like a name and fame, but the legacy is more like the impact which you are able to create.
Maybe a more on the personal side of question, like, do you think fighting through it, like, basically made your family and your relationships much stronger? Or, like, I'm trying to understand, like, how did that dynamic play out?
Yes, certainly, certainly. I think it does help to get grounded as an individual and much more connected with the family members, the immediate family. And yes, I do have a very strong realization that that bondage has increased manyfold.
Yeah, definitely. In my case, in our family as well. So I lost my mom to cancer a few years ago, and it's that was like, so for me, this is like a very, very personal conversation, because I'm taking so many things away from this. It is helping me close out a lot of chapters in my head as well, and like, what happens. And I think for the family as well, they need a coping mechanism, right? Like, I think people often overlook, I think there are some books now which is more like about the family, who's going through this, because it's a slow and ongoing process. And I think there's not so much material available to the families on how they should be around the person they're trying to help. So tell me more about, I think that, is this a correct way to put it, that I like becoming an Amazon VP and fighting this, aren't we all fighting something? I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to still put two and two together in your case, wherein I feel that you have a deeply empathetic personality. You're very compassionate. Your name is Karuna, which exactly means compassion. I'm wondering and there's the other side of resilience, which is having a backbone and, punching it out, as you said. Aren't we all fighting the two battles at every time? Like, is being nice and being sensitive, but also realizing that, oh no, I have to fight this out. I have to, whatever, like, climb the social ladder, and the, need to earn for my family. So most people are conflicted in the two, where mostly the second part wins, wherein they feel that if I'm resilient, if I'm hard enough, the softness, doesn't really matter. But I'm trying to understand from you, like, how are those two balanced out in your personality?
No, so I think in terms of occasions like these, or the it does give moments of pause for sure, where it brings life more towards the balance. Because when we don't have, I mean, I won't say a closed door, but at least a speed breaker. It helps you to take a direction which is more meaningful. And in life, we always, Nikhil, fight those two battles, but it's about one which we know that we have to do, and one which we are
Right.
doing, and we are happy with what we are doing. We are happy with the name and fame, we are happy with the paycheck. But we also realize at times that we have to do something which is beyond this. But when something like cancer happens, it brings the balance where I would say you start orienting yourself more away from the name, fame, the paycheck, the levels, and try to see what is that you are contributing. So, in my own experience, this, while life was not completely out of balance, but it has helped me to come more towards the center.
Do you think it's important to, I think a famous quote from Jim Carrey is that I want everybody to be rich to realize that this is not the meaning of life, or this is not it. Do you think inherently, like as humans, we are social animals. We want to climb the social ladder. We want to be implicitly looked good in front of others. But you think it is important to reach those highs in life and realize that this is not it, and then you go down the other side. I think we spoke about it earlier as well, wherein the ideal approach is to grow in parallel. But I think it really hits you in the face when, for example, like in my case, I imagine, people having millions of dollars, living in a big house, and they're alone. Like, so that to me is the worst outcome that you can have, is like, you do all of that. But I think I do feel that it is important to get there, to realize, okay, this hill I've climbed, but there's nobody to share it with. Or, like the peers that you're competing with, you don't really want to be like them. So I'm trying to understand, like, you think it's important to go through that, hedonic treadmill to realize that, to hit a speed breaker then and realize.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go as far to say you need to get to the height of the richness and then go the other way, but certainly some speed breaker of this sort always helps to get to the center for some. And you know that any amount of richness still does not take away the smell of richness, which they like more and more. So I don't know, they must be getting realization on their last day. But for most people, at some stage when they reach a level of name, fame, richness, it does stop. But you worked at Amazon, you know that ambitions are at their highest. There is no pause, right? And people are
Right.
always look at how to go to the next level, which is not wrong in its own sense, as long as they are able to at least bring some balance. For me, I think the more one is conscious about the fact that enough is enough, whatever you have is enough. You don't need more,
Correct.
particularly in a country like India, and I'm sure in a lot of other countries as well, that you are really privileged few. And if the thought of giving and doing something in the society comes early, it doesn't need to wait for a certain very high level of
Right.
richness or very high level of name and fame from a organizational hierarchy and the success chase that one does. Easier said than done, but then
Yeah.
I'm seeing more and more people are actually trying to bring that balance where where they are also seeing that how should I be starting early in the journey of giving and
Right.
mm, touching the inner self rather than just the name, fame, and the dress up that we do every day.
Yeah, and I think what you underscored in your own life is the importance of a partner. I think that is often underplayed in the sense of most people don't see through. I think in my case, and so many of my friends' case, I think it was their partner who kind of, hit a baseball in their head and is like, what are you doing? And to them, you cannot lie, right? Like they look through that. So, like in my case as well, my wife was like, okay, like you making money, but then what? What are you going to do with it? I was like, I have no idea. And, that put me on a 5, 7 year journey to realize that, okay, like I have to build something more than just looking at paychecks and, your salary. So you have to have a bigger life. And often people think about retirement the same way is I'm going to hit X number and I'll retire. But they don't understand that now they're taking away a big part of their job and they have so many more hours. So what are you going to do? You can't just, sit in a home. So that is more important question that you should be asking is what will you do when you could do anything you want to do? And money just helps you reach that level. Talk to me about Vipassana meditation. I think that's something that also happened to me in my case, wherein I stumbled upon Vipassana in life. I would say an average point in my life, nothing high or nothing low there. But when, for example, in my mom's passing and the lowest points in my life, it helped me understand the true value of Vipassana. So I was also lucky in the fact that I was preparing for something that I did not know would come in future. So involuntarily, unconsciously, I was preparing for something that is going to happen and I will need this in my toolkit. And I really valued it when the low lights came in my life. I'm wondering for you, like, what was the experience with Vipassana, and also like how has it been as a coping mechanism versus other things that people use as a coping mechanism? That I'm not just talking about negative things but also like work or workaholism, like just to cope up with things. So talk to me about Vipassana. How has that changed your perspective?
So for me, it was quite a big change in terms of the way I was doing. Perhaps I was still doing the same things, and little bit more of mindfulness. I mean, when they say about noble silence, and it really strikes you that there is a body language. There is, you speak through your eyes. You don't have to speak only through your words. When you start controlling some of these things, it really makes an impact on the other person in positive sense. So for me, it was quite fulfilling, the 11 days that I went for the Vipassana. And the trigger really was that I was doing some research in trying to understand how to go deeper in what the way we interact with people, the way we think about people, the way we think about ourselves. And is there a way where we can think before we speak more often than think after speaking? And that's the search that was there for me, because a lot of times we actually repent what we have said and we don't mean it. And when we go and say to the other person, we didn't mean it, it means nothing, right? Because you've already said. It's like putting a nail, and now even if you take out, there is a hole there. So it's not going to make an impact. So that's the search I was doing, that what is that I can do which can bring meaningful change and where I can practice things. It's not about knowing. So I don't want the theory, I don't want the knowledge, I want the experience. So I think this was a good way where one could actually learn how to control oneself, control the mind, understand. And if nothing, it has helped me to be more thoughtful in what I'm speaking and when I'm speaking. Again, I mean, somebody can say you can get more thoughtful. I'm only seeing that I have become better than what I was before. And I'm very happy with that. And when this particular disease hit me, I think it was a boon, because it's not easy to undergo chemo. I'll tell you with an example. I mean, the other day, injection was being put, and the nurse asked, "Is it paining?" So when she actually said it is paining, it in fact started paining. And the same injection one day before, I hadn't even realized that it has been given to me. So a lot is there in the mind, and how we can
Right.
control our through our breath, our actions. I would recommend anybody Vipassana, because it's not about knowing the theory, it's actually about practicing it. And even if I would say 30% of the days outside the Vipassana, you can practice it. it becomes part of you. That is how you show up in most of the interaction. That is how you show up in most of the meetings, and it has a very, very positive impact, not only on the people who are in touch with you, but also your own self, because you're never happy to repent. You rather like
Right.
control on what you're doing.
Yeah, I like to say to people that, I mostly describe Vipassana or any meditation to be like, it's not just one thing you do in a day. So imagine that your whole pie, 24 hours, you do it for 30 minutes and you're done. It is actually your whole day is built around that 30
Exactly.
minutes. So your
Correct.
whole actions, your whole like whatever you do 20, for 23 and a half hours or minus the 8 hours you sleep, it actually is your meditation. Your formal practice is good. That's important to keep those 23 and a half hours, sustaining. Is there any like particular memory you had from Vipassana that you would like to share, like that made you like realize during those 10 days that, oh, this is something different? Was there some particular event or like a realization that happened to you during the time?
Yeah. So, not any specific, but most of the time, the thoughts, and particularly when you're done practicing Vipassana, is I hope I'll be able to carry it, because I do see that blemish in me. I do see the opportunity in me. I may still be interacting well, but I can do much, much better than what it is. And for me, the real tipping point came on fourth or fifth day. I can't remember, because initially I was just thinking, hey, what am I doing? Why am I here? But once the practice of control on the breath came, I realized, oh my God, I can be altogether different. I can sit in silence for 30, 40, 50 minutes, which was not the case. I mean, the mind, like a monkey, keeps running from one to the other, to the third, to the fourth. And yeah, so a lot of thoughts at that point, that one of the key things you have done at a younger age than what I did, is that I wish I had done before.
Yeah, no, I think the same. I wish I had done before. And that is the first best time is to do it 20 years ago, but the next best time is to do it now. I think for me the realization was the realization was pain. I thought like I played sports a lot in life. I've been injured a lot in life. To me, pain was the first number one feeling that you can't ignore. You can't just be like, oh, it's hurting, I'm just going to ignore it. But Vipassana really taught me that. And as you said in your case as well, how can you like it just was crazy to my mind that you could just ignore pain. You could just be like, yeah, whatever. And I was like, how is that possible that your legs are shaking, you're trembling, and you're like, okay, whatever, like, I can just focus on some other part of my body. So to me that was quite unreal. I think some of the we're coming to an end, and I think I want to ask you, Karuna, like, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind? What is, like, if you had to think about, like, I think Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger kind of talk about it quite often, is imagine your obituary when you pass away, people are reading about you, and try to reverse engineer it in your life. So by that I'm trying to understand, like, what is something that Karna would like to be remembered as, and what is the legacy? And I think that's a question that I have a feeling that you kind of answer a lot in your life, in your day-to-day life.
Yeah. So for me, legacy is not so much about the name, fame, but the legacy is more about how you are able to create fulfillment in your own life. I mean, a lot of things we do because of social compulsions and pressures. Do we really enjoy them? If not, move away from it. And legacy for me is not like walking a path which no one has walked, but certainly doing things which people knew that they can do, but they haven't done. And it can be small, it can be big, it can grow into much bigger. But as long as there is a name to something that has been started, is something like a driving force for me, is something that was meaningful, and unaddressed is something that I've started or I have done. I'm not sure how much of it I can achieve, but I would always like to do uh, things which are meaningful, things which have a larger impact in the society, and things which one can tomorrow say, yes, Karuna started this.
That's beautiful. And just lastly, like, if you imagine yourself in your 20s and 30s, this is not the Amazon VP that we know you now of, but more like a Pepsi or Saab Miller days when, you were really trying to do both the inner and the outer scorecard things. Thinking about what would you say to somebody in their 20s and 30s who's doing enough, but they still feel they have more potential. As you said, like how do they actualize, or how do they, really hone into those potential? What would your words be? And not as an executive coach, not as an author, like as a friend, what would you say?
In simple terms, I mean, the currency which will be noticed the most is your work. The currency which will be noticed more is your genuine effort, your sense of ownership, and your sense of contributing more
Mhm.
than what your role or scope or things define. More and more things which you do outside the league, not for the heck
Right.
of it, but more as what is needed, is what gives you the confidence. I mean, if
Right.
if it's more like turn the page, learn the trick, and do it, then it's the, I would say, base game. But what is that you're doing which is different? What is that you're doing is more meaningful, both at work as well as outside work in your personal life, is something which gives the confidence and builds a personality which is complete.
Awesome. Where can people follow your journey, Karuna? Like, where can people see what you're up to?
Yeah, you mean from here on?
Yeah, like since you're going to be, moving to the next step in life, leaving
Yeah,
Amazon,
yeah,
where can people, the audience, track what you've been doing or follow your
yeah,
work?
yeah,
Is it through
yeah.
LinkedIn, or is there any social media, or they have to write a letter to you?
No, so this is a question that I was asked by Udit Madan and Beryl as well, and my answer was that once in 6 months I'll do a comprehensive LinkedIn post, stay connected, and hopefully I'll be able to move some distance in every 6 months that I do a post out there.
Thank you so much. This was such an honor of mine. I really appreciate you taking out time. I know last few days have been tough, but I see that you're becoming more and more resilient and anti-fragile. Thank you so much, Karuna. I really wish you a great day ahead. And this was a really nice conversation.
Hey, thanks a lot, Nikhil. Really learned a lot from you, and glad to have interacted with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. This conversation was outstanding. I learned so much from Karuna. I can't believe we unpacked so much in this conversation. I wish I could get him longer. Maybe we'll have another one with him to really unpack a lot of other aspects of his life. If you like this episode, please share with somebody you think that could use it, and go subscribe on that channel today. Thank you so much.